everyone. Welcome to our Crown Sterling community broadcast. I'm joined today by Jeremy Monroe, our Chief Marketing Officer, and Gheorghe Ungureanu, who is our head of development. He's actually joining us from overseas right now. And I believe Greg is also going to be joining us. But I think we can go ahead and get started. So we have a presentation for you today. So lots of update development sort of stuff to talk about today. Our team has grown a lot. We actually have increased our team by several new development engineers. They are outstanding. It's the best group of dev engineers I've worked with that I can remember, actually, and I've done several software projects and companies. These guys are really, really sharp. We've been doing testing every week on the ORION app. I'm happy to say it's very solid. And they're now in the process simply of just updating the UI UX, and very excited about that also. We will have our public beta now in May. It's going to be around the Bitcoin Miami conference. So this is going to be a whole lot of stuff and activities we're doing around that, and then through the course of the summer and the fall also. The update on the UI UX is beautiful. It's excellent. I think everyone's going to super love it. I've been using the app and it's been great because pretty much everything I can do except make telephone calls on Telegram and WhatsApp, I can do on the ORION app right now. And eventually we will be able to do telephone calls with it as well. So all super encrypted with our quantum security. And then, we're also adding in new features as well for moderation of communities, and another feature related to communities being able to have their own cryptocurrencies and point system for their followerships, which is something that's very, very exciting for us. Some of the unique features are unique ID and username. So one of the big things I can't stand about Telegram is that it's starting to really damage my own community on Telegram for my personal, work and brand. And the reason is because every time I post something, there's at least 2 or 3 other fake Robert Edward Grants who post things and then try to lure people into smaller chat rooms and then try to scam them. It's like the Nigerian prince problem, but your name is all over the night. You're the Nigerian prince. It's an absolute nightmare. I can't stand it. And so we have put into our system such that we will not have this same problem, which is a really big deal. Also, direct access to your own community, your community. One of the things I also don't love about Instagram, candidly, is whenever I post something that they want me to post, I get a lot of engagement, I get a lot of followership, I get a lot of likes and reach, and that's fine. But as soon as I post something that I want to post, their algorithms are such that it doesn't get any reach whatsoever. It gets throttled. So that's a real pain. And then also ORION has no data scraping whatsoever. It will have it'll have a small fee, as you'll see, the way our philosophy is on this. If you're not paying for social media in the future, you're literally the product, and it's worth a lot more money than a few bucks that, you should be willing to pay, and everyone is willing to pay. We've actually been doing some surveys on this as well, just to maintain a personal hygiene factor around all of their social media. The data scraping part is pretty astounding. If you look at just the data that a company like AbbVie is paying today for type 2 diabetes geolocation data for consumers, it's something like $27,000 a year. It's a crazy amount of money if you're willing to give up your geolocation information and you happen to be a type 2 diabetic patient, which is a lot of people in the United States. So they use this data to be able to track compliance on drugs. They use this data to be able to track status of clinical trials and pivotal trials as well. And once people really realize what's going on, and I think the public purview of all of this is getting greater and greater, largely because of what's been happening as well with TikTok and these congressional hearings. We are very much in favor of consumers owning their own data. We believe that data is the private property of the original producer. And therefore, because it's the intangible personal property of the original producer, is protected by the Constitution, is protected by many, many jurisdictions around the globe that would protect data ownership on the behalf of the individuals, as well as sometimes even fully communities. We believe that there should be no censorship. We believe as well that that monitoring is something that always inevitably leads to censorship. So we wanted to create a platform that would not be subject to the same types of censorship or the same types of risks from a centralized perspective. So the individual communities would have still their own responsibility to sort of police themselves with their own approach and what matters to them. And then we could also create within the platform a mechanism to protect us from things that are very, very bizarre and untoward, which would be things like child pornography, et cetera. But that can be put right into the platform from an AI perspective, such that there's no monitoring that's required in order to do that. And so basically, these are the basic ethos. This is the process under which we undertook to ensure that we could create a platform that would be essentially what we call #unfuckwithable. And we're very, very excited about launching around that at our Bitcoin Miami conference coming up in May. And we'll also be having a private event this summer. And we're also going to be engaging, we have already began that process of engaging a lot of the influencers, particularly in the spiritual community, whom I happen to know many of them already with many, many millions of combined followers. I think that we've got a fantastic offering that people are going to be very, very excited about joining and becoming a part of. So ORION app is a decentralized and quantum secure community engagement platform. We call it DCOM, which is decentralized communities. It's censorship resistant. Messaging and encrypted communication channels are all fully encrypted with quantum secure encryption. And it's about your community and you're owning your own platform. It's not about, one of the things I also don't love about Instagram and Facebook is that they don't feel like the community that I built up is actually my community. They feel like it's their community. And so they could deplatform me or change things altogether, significantly that could be very deleterious to me. And I can do literally nothing about it. So we wanted to create a system where there was no centralized process to be able to control these types of things. And this is why we created ORION app the way that we did, so that only you can control your own community. And you can basically determine what is really acceptable within your community. And so you can have these authorities within your community that you would assign certain individuals within your community to make sure that things are running how you would like them to be run. But I believe that the sovereign community of the future is going to be protected by encryption. That encryption becomes vitally important to maintaining communities of sovereignty. So you can see where the Venn diagram is here. Freedom of speech is under global attack from big tech and governments through censorship. Algorithms are changing the experience for both creators and their communities. And there's rising concern about privacy and censorship. And it is important to be aware of the value of your data, how it's being used, and how to protect it. If you're not paying for a product in the space, if you're not paying for social media, then you are the product. And everyone needs to really just grasp that and understand that concept. So this is an ecosystem of the ORION app. And our dev team was very keen to put it together like this. I'm going to let Georgi take us through this part of it. And I did see Greg's joined us as well. But Georgi, go ahead.
Yes, so the first thing I would like to touch upon is the team growth that we've actually experienced in the past weeks, mainly because I would say we are currently in a phase where we are bulking up for what is to come. Our ultimate goal is to create a quantum secure blockchain, and that is actually a huge challenge. Over the past months, we've worked a lot on creating procedures for the development teams, creating an environment where the development process is as fluid as possible, which will allow us to take ORION through 3 epochs, which we defined and which I'm about to explain right now. So we've started from the Orion constellation in order to define the epochs, and the first one of them is Bellatrix, is the first one that you'll basically see over the next months. Within Bellatrix, we are creating the quantum secure end-to-end encrypted chat application, which you already heard a lot about. Yeah, I'm not going to insist on that topic. I would actually like to present to you more about the next epochs. So basically the phases that we are bulking up for and the real big challenges that we have ahead in order to ensure the data sovereignty. So the next phase would be will be creating a decentralized oracle, as we call it. This epoch is called Betelgeuse. You can see it on the left side. And as part of this epoch, we are creating a decentralized network of nodes that allows streaming data and hosting data. Now, why is this so important? Specifically for the reasons specified earlier, you need to be capable of owning your data through your private keys. And this can be done only by creating a decentralized storage of nodes where members of the community can also participate and host their own nodes. This phase actually has a lot of implementation potential, because what it actually creates is an ecosystem for developers that want to connect into our storage mechanism and implement the storage also for their own applications. And this is the first building block of the entire ecosystem that we are building. So within this phase, the Orion chat application will connect into decentralized storage, and that decentralized storage will guarantee the data sovereignty for all the users of the app. As part of the third stage, we defined it as Orion's belt, and this is the quantum secure blockchain that we are building, which will have EVM compatibility, meaning EVM applications, EVM-based applications will be easy to port to this blockchain. And this is basically our third phase, in which we are creating the first blockchain that will basically survive any sort of quantum computer attack. Yeah, I'm actually curious if anybody has any questions on this topic. So I don't know if Q&A session will be now or if it will be later, but if you have any questions, please post them into the chat.
Do we have any questions yet or no?
Nope.
We can just keep going.
Yep.
All right, so I'm very excited about it because first of all, I love seeing the initiative from the team come up with this, and it's very cool stuff. And you can see how this ecosystem is going to grow pretty rapidly. And you know, I think being able to have a platform that people can grow and build on top of, that's a true layer one, is going to be very, very interesting for the market. Having a truly quantum secure platform across the board, also something that's very exciting. And I don't really think that any of the other companies right now that are significantly utilized have this kind of technology embedded within them. Georgi, can you speak to that? And why is that? Why is it that other companies haven't gone the direction of quantum security yet?
Well, the first reason is that they are not ready yet. I'm also not sure if they are taking the threat serious enough. And this might become a situation quite fast in the next years if people don't start implementing quantum secure algorithms within their applications. This is easier said than done. So for applications, normal applications like web applications, it will be easy to add, but for existing blockchains, that will not really be possible. So quantum secure blockchains must be built from scratch. And that's what we're actually bulking up to do. That's why I started by saying we are creating a team at the moment. We have in-house capabilities on encryption. We also have an awesome team studying compression, and on the software development side, as part of our backend teams, we have experts in networking, low-level programming, systems programming, and we actually have one of our newest additions is an engineer that has built his own programming language, and has written his own compiler. So what this allows us to do in the context of the quantum secure blockchain is create a dedicated language that will allow the developers to run their applications as part of our quantum secure blockchain. And that's not the only benefit that we are bringing. I'm actually super excited also for the Betelgeuse phase, especially with our capability of creating a compiler and creating a language that allows people to run operations on the blockchain, because what we can enable as part of this process is manipulation of data on chain. Now, this is a capability that nobody has offered up to this point. You can host your data on chains. That there are decentralized projects that allow you to stream the data, but processing of large quantities of data in a decentralized fashion is not possible at this point. And this is something that will enable a lot of companies that are currently using cloud technologies to switch from these cloud technologies and start using our decentralized storage solution. So apart from the security aspect that we are covering, because as part of our vision and goal, security and privacy are the most important components, because we recognize the value of data sovereignty, and you actually cannot have data sovereignty without respecting bleeding edge security practices. Apart from these aspects, we're also focusing a lot on the business capabilities of this decentralized network and on the integrations that will ultimately allow the network to grow over the future, to grow in the future by onboarding different types of applications on top of our system through dedicated tools, software development tools that we're going to offer to the developers that want to work with our platform.
Excellent. Okay. Is Greg on the line?
He is.
I saw him.
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Hey, Greg, you want to make any comments about this and why it is so difficult to take an existing blockchain and to make it quantum secure?
Yeah, with the advent of, kind of DLTs, distributed ledger technologies, right? These ledgers are immutable by definition and by design. That this means they cannot be changed and can never be changed. So any data that you have that is immutable, that has already been encrypted using something that is, not by definition quantum secure, will be, it will be subject to quantum attack in the future. In fact, you're already seeing a large number of black hat hackers stealing encrypted data to decrypt later using quantum computers. It's become something that is truly kind of frightening if you really start to think about it. Now, in traditional computing systems and traditional databases, right, things are not immutable, right? If I need to go change entries, and many of you perhaps are familiar with Excel. In an Excel spreadsheet, I can go cell by cell and change the entries. In blockchain technology, those cells are all locked by definition. So the ability for an already existing blockchain to go back and change that data doesn't exist and cannot exist. So this is why it's so important to do this from first principles, from first engineering principles that is going to make us quantum secure by default. Jorge did a really excellent job of explaining also what makes us, really what makes us special when it comes from onboarding Web 2 to Web 3, right? The biggest issue and really why you're not seeing large scale Web 2 applications move to Web 3 has to do with storage, right? So we've worked very hard to design a decentralized data storage solution that plays alongside of our validation and our security to create an all-encompassing solution that developers can then leverage to build the next generation of Web3 applications. Right now, this is possible, but you have to use a number of basically bifurcated and desperate solutions to achieve this. And for developer productivity as well as ultimately security, this is just not ideal, right? This hasn't gone on, no one's doing it. Ultimately, perhaps I could, create a decentralized version of Instagram or a decentralized version of TikTok, a decentralized version of Amazon by combining some solutions like Filecoin and Ethereum, but developers cannot and will not ever do this because it balloons the development to tie these systems together, right? We are going to create essentially what's considered a superset of EVM that allows developers not only to port their existing applications, but also leverage quantum secure storage on top to create this next generation of Web3 application.
Cool. Yeah, totally agree. So I think that's going to leave a lot of companies kind of in a bit of a pickle, I'm guessing, when all the standards have to switch. I mean, the government's already said all the standards have to switch. So how's that going to work for all the companies that don't have that right now?
They will basically have to go through a migration plan and start migrating all of their production services. Now, I think the main question in this circumstance is at what point we will actually see the first quantum attack happen. So at this point, if anybody or the person who already has a quantum computer, if they would actually pull the trigger, it would be mass panic, because the software currently does not have any sort of worldwide software that we are using, and we're talking about banks, about all online activity. They have no protection against these mechanisms. We are seeing a lot of development, even in open source community, and a lot of awareness being raised on quantum secure algorithms. Even in the OpenSSL library that is used by a lot of companies worldwide, we are seeing now a repository with quantum secure algorithms that are slowly being implemented in software. I think it will be interesting to see what happens when 40% of online software has a level of protection, or maybe one big company already has this level of protection, because at that point, if a quantum attack happens, that means the software that's not protected is the software that's going to fall. So this is a development that we'll see over the next years. We'll see a lot of companies starting to upgrade their software, but it's a long-term plan, because some software can't be updated. Some software must be rewritten from scratch in order to add that layer of quantum protection.
Interesting. Also, yesterday I announced that the new book that I wrote with Michael Ashley has just become available for pre-sale, and it's called Neuromined. And you can see there's a quote right up at the top from Aubrey Marcus that is quite interesting, and maybe you can read it for me, Andrea, because it's too small for me to see on the screen there.
Is your data being exploited?
No, at the top
No.
of the book.
Oh,
No.
I'm sorry.
That's not too small for me. I'm not that blind.
This book is a devastating blow to the tyranny of our tech-fueled corporatocracy.
Right. There we go. Triumphing over technological tyranny, Neuromined. I think people are going to really like this book. We did hear back from Hudson, which is all the airport stores. They're going to be carrying this front and center. So it's going to be, through our publisher, it's going to definitely make a splash, and they were very excited about having it in all the airports. So, and then this is for people that want to get frequent updates on our app, Orion. You can just, put your phone over that. It'll take you straight to the location where you can sign up for, all the updates on Orion and everything. And we'd like all of you to be part of our beta expansion, which is happening in May. And this is not an easy thing to make a quantum secure version of Telegram or the other platforms like WhatsApp, et cetera, but it is so necessary. I believe it's going to be so vital that in the future, if you kind of look at the past is always a good indicator of the future, but where we are right now is the precipice of a dramatic shift and change in the world. And what has been in the past, national borders have been the things that have been protected to keep, encroachment at bay, other nations from invading your nation, et cetera. But in the future, the boundaries are not going to be geographic, but they are going to be data. It's going to be about data, and it's going to be about protection of that data, and the new boundary conditions between sovereign communities will be encryption. And we're thrilled to be on the front end of this. We have been for quite some time now. We want to be a platform that becomes a standard before the entire world figures out, that everybody needs to switch. And this is going to basically give us a real head start against everybody else. And we're quite excited about it. But most importantly, it's going to allow for communities to be able to operate unfettered and without censorship and monitoring.
Sorry, somebody asked to go back to this slide so they could see it again.
Okay. So that QR code will take you to the pre-sale page for Amazon, so you can order it.
Great.
Thank you.
And then we did get another question earlier.
Mhm.
If I can read that off. It says, how far along are we in the development of the blockchain?
How far along are we in the development of the blockchain? So I'll let Greg, you want to take that one?
Sure. So, and I'll let Jorge follow up because he'll probably have some awesome thoughts to add, as he always does here. But realistically, what we've done thus far is really created not only some encompassing architectural designs that not only take care of, and we've kind of divided into three discrete parts, right? Decentralized storage kind of being the hub, right? And then how we serve that data and validate the serving of that data being the other two pieces to kind of create this triangle, if you will. We divided the problem up into these three discrete sections, and into these three discrete sections into a white paper that will be published probably sometime next fall, to be honest. What we're doing right now is creating some proof of concept softwares to ensure that our theoretical designs match up to the empirical realities that the software needs to uphold and adhere to really ensure that the user experience that is going to be provided from these softwares is on par with what is currently being offered today. In layman's term, that really means that we need to ensure that our designs will provide the user experience that everyone is paying for and is used to now through traditional Web3 technologies. Jorge, if you want to tack on anything to that, that's holistically where we are today, and we can answer more in-depth technical questions too if anybody wishes.
Yeah. So I think you covered really well our current status, so the position we are currently in. What I think it's important to note here is that this will be the first quantum secure blockchain. So in the history of computer science, this will be a unique moment. This is something that will be taught in universities 15 years from now, and we're fully aware of how big this challenge is. And the good part about it is that we have engineers that are hearing about the project worldwide that want to join Crown Sterling, especially because of how special this project is. So this allows us to build a multicultural environment where we have developers from all over the world, real geniuses, some in the first years of their career, some older that have seen the industry evolve through time, that wanna be part of this entire process.
And just, I guess to add on to Jorge's comment there, the last thing I'll say is, it really is a team, right? We've worked tremendously hard to make sure that the team that we've been building can deliver on this, and we're continuing to build that team. Anybody who would like to get involved or has relatives, friends, particular contact, especially in the encryption research space, distributed computing research space, blockchain research space, that would like to get involved, as well as quantitative finance research space, where we're continually looking to grow our family here.
Excellent. So I'm going to ask a question to Jeremy. So Jeremy, we've been doing a lot of market research. Would you like to give a summary of the research we've been undertaking?
Sure. And before I jump into that, Robert, I really want to say that from a marketing standpoint, we're very, very excited to be able to start to share a lot of what Jorge and Greg and Robert have been talking about. As you can see, we're doing some very revolutionary things, and we are going to be addressing some very significant threats. And the beauty about seeing that the book has come out is that Robert and Michael, in writing that book, have done a beautiful storytelling way of addressing a lot of the threats that are going to be coming out. And what we're doing as a company is really speaking to how we can address a number of those threats. So there's a very nice synergy there. And as a marketing team, we're excited to start to put out a lot of the information that we've been working on. And to do that in the most effective way, we have been doing market research to make sure that our positioning is on point, that the features that we're building into the tool are on point. And where we are in that process right now is we've refined the questionnaire a number of times. It's gone out to a small test group. We've gotten that feedback back. And it is now out to a much larger group, about 1,200 people. We'll do one more iterative process, and then it'll go to another 1,200 people. Some of the things that we're finding are that, one, there's very much a need for this kind of technology, this kind of messenger that really, really focuses on privacy, focus on security, and has an emphasis on the anti-censorship or the anti-deplatforming mentality that's currently happening right now. The other thing that is very interesting is that people are willing to get involved in a project like this. And interestingly enough, when a company brings a very valuable service, brings a very valuable tool to the market, they're willing to pay for it. And as we've said for a very long time, if you aren't paying for the product, you are the product. And so we want to honor the fact that people are willing to pay and make sure that we're putting a very valuable product in front of you. And so that's really what the market research is getting at.
Excellent. So we have another question, which is, what does this all have to do, or how does this all tie in with CSOV? And the answer is, first of all, we will have a fee that will be like a subscription fee related to use of our app. And that subscription fee, the only way that it will be able to be used with our architecture and with our app is going to be through our tokenization of it. And so therefore, it's like think of it like an arcade. It's no different than what I've talked about before. Let's say you go to an arcade, you have to give money, first to the arcade so they can issue you tokens, and then those tokens get used to play all the games in the arcade. We kind of have the same philosophy on this, and it's the same approach. So therefore, what's going to happen is that there will be a pretty high degree, I believe, of token pull-through and velocity on our platform. And this is the first of several. We're also excited about what's been happening as well with some of our other activities that are going to be integrated into this. So we're going to integrate fully the cyber spiritual life simulation game architecture as well into a commons area on the ORION app, which is like very super cool, like crazy cool stuff. And that's going to all kind of get integrated in. And so for people to be able to use any of our products and services, they're all going to still have to basically use our token in order to achieve that. So we do have a whole migration path and plan, because now we've decided to go forward with our own blockchain. And of course, that will also be an EVM compatible. So that will have implications on what happens over time to the usage of WCSOV versus CSOV, et cetera, and then migrating eventually to just one token is where we want to basically get to. And that will be usable across all different platforms, et cetera. So we have a whole migration plan in the works on this right now. It's been more complex than we thought to basically work this through, but when we decided to go forward with our own blockchain, our own layer 1 blockchain, as Jorge said, the only one in the world that's fully quantum secure, and we're even talking about at the state transition function, that's a very big deal for us. So of course, there will be interchangeability between all of our token types. And this is going to be an important aspect of this. And stay tuned, because every one of the tokens you have are going to be valuable in all of our architectural platforms, and as well interchangeable. So I think this is going to be an important aspect that everyone's going to have to stay abreast of as we continue our development process. But the good news is across the board that we feel very, very robust and confident about our ability to deliver on our own blockchain and to embed within it all of the technology we've already worked so hard to put in place across all of our different technological platforms right now. In that context, we actually have new white papers that have also been written. We are doing a light paper now that is going to be a summary of Orion app, but the back end of all of our activities has been largely as a result of our white paper that we wrote that kind of ties all of our different architectures together into one. And I have to commend the team. They've done an amazing job on it. So all of this stuff is soon to be released. It's going to be planned to be released at the same time as our beta expansion for Bitcoin Miami, which is only about a month away now, a month and a half. And we're just thrilled about the progress we've made and the technology we built. And I tell you, it's very cool to be using our app internally, sending messages, sending photographs and video and everything in very much the same exact way that I do on Telegram. But I know that this is absolutely quantum secure and there's no monitoring of it. Now, one of the other things we've done is we've basically said, we would also like to be able to have an Apple Store app, and we'd also like to eventually be able to have an Android Store app. But we built all of this on secure web presence so that as always that needs to be the case in this. You probably saw that the first messaging app that was going out in China that was rumored to be decentralized, not quantum secure, but decentralized, basically came and got taken off the Apple Store right away. So we're very mindful of when Apple and Android would just basically put a block, or certain governments put a block. And we believe that this technology should be something that could be used by people as far away as Iran, that in the future, they're all going to want to be able to coalesce, not at a government level, but as people can basically coalesce around the world, independent of borders. We want them to be able to take advantage of different decentralized technologies so that they can organize themselves candidly. And this is part of the major reason why we built this platform, so that organization and communities can be built up for their own individual and collective sovereignty as a community. And so basically what we've done with all of our platforms is to ensure that this technology is something that could be used across the board. There are certain countries that are not allowed to use our encryption, right? And so we do have to adhere to the letter of the law in that. And so certain, government agencies, et cetera, we can't sell encryption to North Korean government, for example. That's not allowable. But certainly this platform is going to get used, I think, to be able to organize community around the world independent of border. And that's something that I'm very, very passionate about, because I think people being able to do that without having to worry about, the government encroaching in their lives all over the place is, I think, a critical aspect of what it means to maintain a democracy. Any questions?
We do have a question that says, how can this platform protect against malicious intent by communities?
Okay, so if a community has, it depends on what you mean by malicious intent. So for example, if it's a child pornography ring or something like that, they just won't be able to post anything into their community because the AI technology that will be built into it will block them from being able to do that. They'll also have their own monitoring. Now, it becomes very, very subjective when you say what is malicious and what is not malicious.
You said, starting a protest / riot, etc.
Yeah, starting a protest and starting a riot, that is not something that we are going to basically be trying to monitor or control. A protest is something that is allowable under the Constitution, and it should be allowable in every country in the world as well. Demonstration is the exact same thing. So I say bring them, let them use this platform for that. And I think it's exactly one of the reasons why we've done that. What do you mean by uprising? So what I mean by uprising in this particular case, if people organize in countries because they don't feel that their governments, and even our Constitution embeds this as a concept, are basically remembering that they derive their just powers from the consent of the governed, then people should be able to rise up. And that's a fundamental right that I believe in. I will fight anybody on that topic. Bring it. And I can tell you this right now, people need to be able to do that. Now, when you're talking about terrorist acts, that's a different deal, right? That's an entirely different deal. But for people to uprise and be able to organize and to fight for what they believe to be their rights, fucking bring it. Next question.
That was, so far, that is it.
What
You've
about
answered-
the migration package?
Oh,
Will
sorry.
there be a way to share this story in a turnkey way to all the groups that we are a part of, WhatsApp, Telegram, so that they can migrate over to Orion? So community managers, the migration package, community managers,
Uh-huh.
and then members.
How do you train people? You mean how
Mhm.
communities will be trained on templates?
Yeah,
Yes.
to get us.
So
over.
there'll be templates that people will be able to use, and eventually those templates will have some degree of customization even. So they can create their own stuff within it as well, right? But one of the things that's so vitally important here, and I think this is a really critical aspect, we are not going to be a centralized app, right? We're not centralized. So therefore, if someone said to us, hey, we want you to monitor this and make sure there's nothing going on this, we don't even have a mechanism to do that, right? Because all of the whether it's the whole thing is decentralized across a nodal network, we don't have access to it. So you could think of us more like WordPress. So WordPress is a protocol company, right? They make a protocol and everyone can make their own websites. And if people have, things that they'd like to do on their websites, they have to be responsible for what they do. So I'm not saying that there shouldn't be responsibility for what people do. There should absolutely be responsibility. It's just like we have free speech, but at the same time, free speech doesn't mean you have no consequence for free speech. If you say something that's unlawful, you have to face the law for that. It is what it is. But as far as us monitoring that, I have a WordPress website that I host on my own server. WordPress is not responsible for what I post on my website. So our system is more like this. We've built it in such a way that we are only a protocol, and that each of the communities that build their own communities are essentially white labeling their own process. And it just happens to be that it's going to be spread across an entire nodal network. And that I feel very, very strongly about, because that means that communities have to police themselves. That means that communities they're not shirking or getting away from their legal responsibility. So if somebody wants to do some sort of terrorist act, they have to recognize that that community that we don't have direct purview into, we cannot see it, that community though is still responsible, and they could face legal consequence if they break the law. That is what it is. But it's not for the company to determine what is lawful and what is not lawful amongst their community when we have no control over the monitoring of it. The things that we can do is we can put in place things like AI to stop things like child exploitation, et cetera. And that type of stuff, yes, is built into the platform. But beyond that, people organizing, et cetera, and other possibilities of terrorist activities, the communities themselves, they set up today. That's why it kind of makes me laugh when people talk about, how cryptocurrency is a harbinger for a bunch of criminal acts. And you don't think that the US dollar is? Are you fucking kidding me? It's ridiculous. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. And so somehow it's like, oh, because we've got all this, how is it we've got all this AML and KYC anti-money laundering and KYC, know your customer, and yet we still have so much crime. Well, maybe a lot of that crime is happening at the governmental level because we have corrupt governments. So it's time for us to start really realizing the world that we're living in, guys. And the truth is that the world needs to have a mechanism. Otherwise, if we don't have a mechanism for sovereign communities to be able to interact and communicate with each other, we're not going to be very far away from a social credit system that they have in China right now. No, thank you.
Seems like.
Jorge, do you have any comments?
Yes, actually, yes, because this is a subject that is very personal to me and important. And it's one of the
We
reasons
can't hear
why.
you. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, good. So this is one of the reasons why I feel privileged to work on this project and why I'm really happy to be here. So I personally come from a post-communist country, and we all value freedom of speech, and we all respect democratic rights of all citizens. And this has been a huge topic over the last weeks, especially in Europe. And our colleague Greg got to see that firsthand. So it is exceptionally important to us that our platform respects the guiding principles that have been implemented into modern society, into modern Western society today, and that has allowed us to build the economies that we have. And the right to protest is one of those fundamental rights. And our application is actually not only about that, because apart from corrupt governments that are trying to limit our freedoms, actually the attack of centralized power has become more and more subtle over time. So what's basically happening now is that they don't show you that they're taking away your freedom, but they're slowly taking your money over time. And data sovereignty is a huge point here, because exactly as we discussed before, if you don't pay for the product, you are the product. And one thing that I love to say about Orion is that what we are basically doing is we are putting the crown on your head and the sterlings in your pocket through this project, because you become the king of your own data. And over time, you'll basically get to keep your money, or to basically make more money for the value that you have by owning your own data. So those are the guiding principles that we have, and that's what we fight for. And it's amazing to be part of a project where like-minded people that have phenomenal technical skills have basically joined forces in order to create such a product. So also on this topic, I want to thank you, Robert, for all of the support that you've basically given to us in building the team, and in creating a product, and basically building such a vision to life. And it's a big challenge. It's a big project. It will take a lot of time, but we are confident that we will achieve it because we believe in it, and we know this should be at the core of modern society.
Thanks, Jorge. Okay, do we have any other questions?
What might governments try to do to stop this as it competes with their ability to own us?
It's a deep question. I think that probably they're going to try eventually to put in place all kinds of new legislation. There was a new bill introduced just this week that is trying to basically increase the reach through, and it's going to happen through means that I think are going to seem less pernicious, right, and more innocuous. So, for example, the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act prohibits us from paying off a ransomware participant. Someone calls up and says, we encrypted all your data. And these, by the way, these ransomware companies in Russia are like legitimate companies. They're like real companies. So the way they got away with it is because Foreign Corrupt Practices Act doesn't matter if the payment is in Bitcoin. So they always take the payment in crypto. So this is how you have to do it. You have to basically set up a wallet and pay them off with crypto. You can't pay them off with dollars. And so this has become kind of a thing. And so as a result, now new legislations have been introduced that are saying, okay, well, that was kind of a loophole on the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. So let's try to find a way to rope that in, right? And this is the way governments work. And governments, you know, to be honest, they get bigger, they never get smaller. This is why founding fathers of our government said, okay, every few hundred years, you probably need a revolution of some sort. Who knows? Maybe we're there. And I think that that our government right now has become so heavy on the weight of its own corruption that this is why now all of a sudden the world's having to turn to means to kind of like get out from underneath the oppressiveness of it. You know, we had no income tax in the United States until like the early 20th century. The entire war in 1776 was fought over a 2% tax on tea. They would be laughing at us right now if they're like saying, well, you guys, we contemplated there's probably going to be some sort of change that was going to happen. In the meantime, you guys have put up with that. What the hell? Yeah. And this is what happens in Rome. And we're watching the decline of civilization in front of our very eyes right now. And it's really quite astounding. And it's kind of like a frog boiling in water, right? The way you kill a frog is you basically put them in slow heat, right? And increase the heat. It'll never jump out of the water, and then you can boil the frog. But if you try to toss a frog into boiling water, he'll jump out right away. So what's been happening is, as a nation, we've been allowing this notion. Now it's almost entirely acceptable that the government owns us. And so it ends up that it manifests in the form of a question like the one I just got. It sounds so anathema. You know, if 20 years ago someone asked me a question about the government owning me, I'd be like the frog jumping out immediately of the boiling water. Today, it seems like we're just sort of like letting the water get hotter and hotter until it gets to a boil, and then we're cooked. So someone's got to stand up and do something about this, and it's going to be us. And hopefully us among many others. If you won't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. Thank you, guys. Have a great rest of your day.